Hello, and welcome to my talk about how unicorns can build better chatbots. My name is Alex Radu. I work in technology and I used to be a developer, designer, community manager. I'm currently working in product management, and product marketing management. And I wanted to share with you how chatbots and unicorns can build better chatbots. Views are my own and not my employer. I need to say that before we start. And I can't wait to take you through this journey with me. So, we're going to start with what is a unicorn? And it's a lot of different things. It's Scotland's national animal. I currently live in Glasgow, Scotland, so that's a very, very dear fact close to my heart. And there are things that are highly desirable but hard to obtain, like a startup that's valued at more than $1 billion. We have had quite a few of those come out in recent years in tech as well. So that's another probably association that people have with unicorns. And they are a legendary creature. They are part of mythology. People don't think they existed, or some people think they existed, but they don't anymore. Remains to be seen, but they also represent a perfect tech candidate persona. That means they're someone who has a breadth of experience, they have diverse skills, they can mold themselves into different types of work, and sometimes they can be end to end developers, they could be developer designers, they could be folks that have transitioned from non tech industries into tech and therefore have some skills that tech roles don't necessarily teach you. And they are a very good kind of like all round experience, skills, cultural fit type of persona that recruiters look for, that will integrate into a team but will also bring a breadth of experience into that team and their role. So, to move on, we're going to talk about the chatbot side. And we're going to start with the anatomy of a chatbot. So, what makes a chatbot a chatbot? You might have heard about chatbots being referred to as virtual assistants or chat assistants. They're basically a method for a human to interact through language with a system or collection of systems to help them achieve a goal or complete a task. So, for example, you might have chatbots in the service industry, you might have them in the insurance industry, you might have them in the holiday and travel industry. They might help you book a flight, they might help you get a quote for insurance. You might have a chatbot to deal with your issues with your mobile phone provider. And basically, the first interaction point that you'd have with them is the user interface. And that could be in channel, it could be web, it could be voice, it could be IM using Slack or Discord, and also authentication. So, how do they know that you are who you say you are, and when do you get access to them? Is it always available, which means that you have to pass some security steps and maybe, like, I don't know, give them your customer number or validate your postcode or email address. And that's when you get into the dialogue management and NLP side, which is the content, the scripts, the flow, how do you process the user input. So, with the emergence of large language models and chatbots that are based on them, like ChatGPT or Bard, we are seeing an emergence of people that are building chatbots without having to have very deep technical skills. However, it depends how you're building it. Are you using a framework? Are you building it from scratch? Do you have some compliance and security aspects that you need to consider? So you need people to build them in-house. Also, like when you're using the large language models to create the content that the chatbot will reply to your customers with, is that actually true to your business? Is it integrated? Is it relatable? Is it correct with what your customers expect from your brand and your product? And also that leads into the action and answer engine for queries. So if someone has an incident and they want to go and find their ticket, they're probably going to have a reference. Now, if you're just using a plain API driven chatbot that you haven't customized, you haven't integrated with your systems, they will never be able to know when you give them that reference as a customer what that relates to. So that's where the importance of having a good technical developer that actually looks at your knowledge base, at your external system integrations, at your APIs, becomes very important because you want it to feel custom. You want it to feel like people are getting the answers to what they need, even though they're talking to a chatbot and not a customer service assistant, for example. Now, that brings us to the personality of your chatbot. And that's more on the design, experience, branding, marketing side. You want your bot to have a persona. You want them to have a name, ideally, maybe a cute icon that people can relate to and that fits in with your brand. You want them to have a job description. What are their responsibilities? What they can and can't do? What is their job? What are they there to do? You can't have a chatbot do everything because then they will do everything poorly instead of specific things very well. Are you trying to replace some of your highly specialized, highly curated interactions with humans with a chatbot? How much can you dedicate in terms of time and effort and knowledge to make that happen? Because if you're just trying to shift the work, it's not necessarily going to work out if you haven't got the data, the answers, the flows really well architectured and designed. Then you have the language. Does your chatbot say hi, hey, hello, hey, hey? Um, does it need to be localized? Do they use emojis? Do they not? What is their type of, like language that they use? What their voice? Does it fit with your brand? Is it what your customers expect? Is it targeted to your customer base? Do you need to think about localization and internationalization? Will you offer it in different languages? Will those markets and customer audiences actually relate to you using emojis? And then you need to think about flow. How long until they get to the desired action and meet their goal? Is it clear where they need to go? Are you offering them options? Or are you just processing their input and then trying to direct them to the best place? So in terms of that, we're going to talk a little bit about what it actually takes to build a chatbot, and a great one. And this is more around the developer side of your unicorn that's maybe building this. Some people have multiple folks in a team that focus on the different things. So like the content, the design, the architecture, the development, the integrations, the APIs. But the reality is not a lot of people can afford that. So if you do find a unicorn candidate that would like to do all of that and they're super enthusiastic and they're super curious about it, then you've kind of struck gold there. So on the build side, so the development side, you want to make sure that you're clear on the functionality and you can build out the functionality for that. You want to make sure that the security of the application and in the application is really strong. You don't want to end up in the news by having leaked data or having changed things for your customer accounts when your customers didn't actually request that. You want to make sure that you're able to integrate with other systems that you have. So going back to the example with the ticket, if your customer comes and has a problem, they've raised a ticket previously and they want an update, you want to integrate with that system and be able to give them the latest update that maybe a technician put on that. You want to make sure that it's multi-channel, that you're reaching your customers where they are, which means that you need to have some sort of skills in terms of building for the web, for mobile, for voice, for IM, and that you understand how you can integrate these. You also want to make sure that you're doing a lot of testing, a lot of automation. You want to automate the things that you can. You also want to make sure that your NLP training is done thoroughly, that you're basing it on actual knowledge and content and data that you have, as opposed to just taking generic models and using those. And then that you're testing them with your customers and your users to make sure that you're on the right path before you release them into the wild. You also want to make sure that you think about microservices and how you can build and architect your application very well, depending on what skills you want to build and your unicorn potentially is thinking about building for you. You want to make sure that you're combining what can be combined, but then you're actually separating your architecture into microservices to make it more scalable, reliable, resilient. After that, we're going into what it takes to design a great chatbot, and this is more around its personality. However, when you are developing it, you need to understand and be aware of the impact of these design decisions and what that means for the building of your chatbot. So that's why I think a unicorn that's also into development and design, and they think about the system and the chatbot holistically, is a lot better than having different folks building different things. So in terms of the design, you want to think about the architecture. Again, this is also related to your integrations, your microservices, how you're actually building it. But you want to make sure that you're architecting in a way that it's scalable, that you can add flows, you can change flows, that you're not creating the same kind of beginning of the flow over and over again. You want to make sure that your chatbot has a very well-defined persona. So going back to the voice, the branding, the skills, the goals, the job description, what do they actually do? How do they talk? How do you see them interacting with your customers? You want them to be so memorable that they actually, your customers go and advocate for it, or they share it with their family, their friends, their work colleagues, and say, hey, I had this really good interaction with this chatbot. You need to check it out. You want to make sure that it's usable and accessible. You want to make sure that folks can actually get the response and the help that they want from it. And you want to make sure that everyone in your customer base can actually leverage it and use it. So accessibility is super important. You also want to make sure that the language is suitable for your target audiences and your customer base, and that if you are bringing it to diverse markets, that you'll have a focus on internationalization when you're designing it. You want it to be a wow experience. You want folks to be able to be excited about interacting with it and not just thinking, oh, why can I not speak with a human instead? But you also want to make sure that you're putting in some mechanisms to redirect them and not keep them going through the same loop, and you're giving them an out if they do need that, and if the chatbot actually hasn't been trained or it doesn't recognize the requests that they're asking it. And you want to make sure that you're putting into your design process your analysis phase. So whether that's after your user testing to analyze the data and the responses, whether that's to see where customers are having to take the out option or they're stuck in a loop, whether it's how successful they are, how many integration calls you actually get, what you can do to kind of like add more integrations and automation into it. Those are all things that you need to think about when you're designing and architecting it, but also as you're implementing it and developing it. So in terms of why a unicorn? Well, also because it makes a pretty cool acronym. You want to make sure that your chatbot and your builders and designers of your chatbot, if they are a unicorn, follow a couple of different goals and North Stars. You want to make sure that it's user focused, because the interaction should be focused on your chatbot communicating with your user and helping them meeting their goals, that it's really good and well trained on natural language processing, and you want to make sure that your data and your inputs that you're putting into its training are actually relevant to your product, your company, and your goals. You want to make sure that it has an intelligent design, that it's architected in a scalable and sustainable way. You want to make sure that it's secure. You want to make sure that it's consistent, that it actually provides the same responses and the same interactions to customers, regardless of how many times they ask it the same thing, or that if it does do integrations, that it does do that consistently and there's no failures in the process. You want to make sure that it's optimized, that it doesn't ask people to do more steps than they should to get to the result that they want, or it guides them through that process to get there quicker. You want to make sure that it's relatable and reliable. So every time people come there, it's available, it's online, it's capable to do the things that you've promised them it's going to do. And you want to make sure that it's normalized. So you want to make sure that it does do the same things for everyone, regardless of who they are, if they're asking it the same thing. So in terms of a couple of useful tips for building your chatbot, don't postpone conversational design. It's basically the foundational stone of your chatbot. You want to make sure that you're planning. You want to make sure that you understand what it's going to be doing. NLP training takes time, and a lot of training and a lot of data. So make sure that your data is clean. Make sure that your data is suited to your needs for your chatbot, and make sure that if you are incorporating other models that have been trained, that the data they've been trained on does match the goals that you have for your chatbot. Make sure that you build its brand and its persona, and make sure that you understand what its voice, its language are going to be. Make sure that you understand, what kind of things your customers are going to be expecting from it, and you're meeting that expectation, or you're building it iteratively. Never underestimate your users. They will do things that you do not expect. So make sure that you have failbacks. Make sure that you have an out for them if they're stuck in a loop. Make sure that you're leveraging integrations and automation, because at some point your customers will be expecting that. Testing is really important, so don't leave it until you're ready to go live. Make sure that you're testing iteratively and you're having customers and beta testers engage early in the process. And make sure that you're creating memorable experiences. You want people to walk away thinking that your chatbot is amazing, has a great personality, it's memorable. They will remember the interaction, they will remember the persona, the brand. Make sure that it's accessible so that everyone can actually benefit from the amazing chatbot experience that you or your unicorn is building for you. So, sum up, we got to the end, and chatbots need to be relatable and reliable, and that's built through a very intertwined development and design process, which unicorns as a tech candidate persona or employee persona can build very well. For your chatbot to be successful, you do need to have helpful, meaningful, and quality conversations for your customers, and a unicorn for extra help if you can. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I am so glad we had to spend this time together, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the Women on Stage events and talks today. Thank you.